The implications of this are frankly nothing short of historic. Over 100 documents that we released on Friday really detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office.
Wrong loser. You know who it is? Barack Obama. Do you know why? Because his voice doesn't carry weight anymore. He was out there begging, screaming, scolding, everything he did. He no longer carries that weight. Imagine Barack Obama every day he goes to sleep. He remembers that one dinner that he's talking to Trump, saying you'll never be president, when he did the angry tweets and all this stuff on Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, and he reads the Trump tweet at him talking about him. He says, at least you'll never be a president, drops the mic.
In short, the impact of this moment reaches far beyond politics. The documents released on Friday, over 100 in total, suggest that President Obama had a hand in a questionable plan just weeks before leaving office. And here's the twist. Despite once being one of the most commanding voices in the nation, his influence today seems almost non-existent. Think about it. The same Barack Obama who used to lecture, demand, and set the tone for the political stage now finds his words carrying far less weight. His frustration was clear, his arguments sharp, but the authority he once held has slipped away. There's even a story that during a dinner, Trump turned to him and bluntly said, "You'll never be president again." The remark, almost taunting in its simplicity, stuck like a shadow. And later, while Obama watched late-night television, he reportedly saw Trump's words echoed in a viral tweet on shows like Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon. Picture the scene. He sets the microphone aside, confronted not with applause, but with the reminder of that remark. At least you'll never be president again.
So think you're Obama, okay? First go from the Obama's lens. Okay. Obamas are sitting there having to hear people compare Kamala to Obama. Crazy. Do you know what that does to Obama? Do you know Obama is sitting there saying, shut the that's what Obama's saying internally, right?
Director Gabbard, give me your response to what we heard from former President Obama there. He's saying that none of this makes any sense, that this is a distraction. What do you say to that?
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week.
He entered the spotlight as the smooth-talking figure who vowed peace and transformation, quickly rising as a symbol of hope. His words weren't just speeches, they became anthems celebrated by massive crowds and amplified by global media. The world wasn't just watching, it was buying into the image of a leader who promised something new. But not everyone accepts that picture. Critics like Tulsi Gabbard and Patrick Bet-David push past the polished image to reveal what they see as the reality behind the brand. To them, Obama's true record tells a different story. Chaotic foreign interventions, unwavering loyalty to Wall Street, and a presidency where appearance often outweighed substance. And here's the catch. Once the spotlight shifts and the sheen wears off, the carefully crafted illusion doesn't hold up. What remains is not the legend many believed in, but a complicated legacy that sparks debate long after he's left office.
One thing I wanted to show is the following. So you know how you talked about Jerome Powell, what an easy job. You come once a month and he said we're going to increase the rates.
Greatest job there is.
I think this is the one thing they don't talk about. So Barack Obama got elected November 4th. Okay, quantitative easing started November 26th.
Right.
And it stayed for 8 years until you got elected.
Right.
So if you look at that low, pretty much 0% interest rate.
Right.
And then you get elected, right? If you go to January 2016, Rob, for the audience to see that. And then from there, one by one, rates are going up. And then Biden comes in, goes back down to zero to try to save the economy. And then, the rest is obviously history.
Right.
But do you think the average person knows, like, the impact of going to 0%?
And don't forget, if you're enjoying this video, tap the bell icon and subscribe so you never miss an update. For years, Barack Obama carried himself as though he had secured a permanent seat among the elites of history. With carefully timed pauses between every few words, a polished suit, and that trademark calm delivery, he often sounded less like a politician and more like a preacher addressing a congregation. To many, he became the so-called philosopher king of modern politics, a man who claimed his mission was to drain the swamp and transform Washington from the inside out. But here's the twist. Just like his famously unreliable NCAA bracket picks, the shine on that image doesn't last long. The carefully built facade begins to crumble once Patrick Bet-David and Tulsi Gabbard peel back the layers, exposing a legacy far more complicated than the myth that surrounded him.
Tom, what is the process of Nobel Prize? If he's able to do that, who nominates? Because most of the Nobel winners are on the left.
Nobel Prizes, you can go look this up, are given through an arcane nomination process, and they go into a back room and they decide who they're going to give it to. And the Nobel Peace Prize is basically a political football. You look around the world at people that have really caused peace, and you have Obama made a couple speeches as soon as he was inaugurated in 2009. Oh my goodness, we give it to for fostering an environment of peace.
Trying to market a used Honda with a busted transmission, that's how Patrick Bet-David describes Barack Obama's legacy. Behind the polished smile and Messiah-like aura, he came across less as a leader and more as a salesman stuck with bad inventory. To Bet-David, Obama was never a trailblazer, he was a brand, a walking commercial wrapped in elegant speeches. Think of him as the political equivalent of an Apple keynote speaker. Dazzling delivery, sleek packaging, and endless hype. But once you crack open the box, the sparkle fades. Instead of groundbreaking innovation, what people found were frozen screens, broken chargers, and the same problems repackaged. The long lines of supporters who once stood in anticipation of hope were ultimately met with disappointment, realizing the product didn't live up to the glossy presentation.
To try to impact the outcome of the U.S. election leading up to Election Day. The same assessment was made after Donald Trump was elected by the American people as president in 2016, defeating Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't until after that pulled president's daily brief document that the Principals Committee was called in the National Security Council, and President Obama then directed Obama's DNI James Clapper to lead the effort to create this new intelligence community assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow attempted to influence the outcome of the U.S. election.
Tulsi Gabbard takes it a step further. She argues that Obama didn't just rely on polished speeches, he mastered the art of selling old policies in sleek, modern packaging. It was less about change and more about rebranding. She points out how he promised solutions while quietly expanding drone strikes, almost as if he was running an Amazon Prime for missiles. His administration, despite pledges of transparency, cracked down on whistleblowers harder than any before him. And through it all, the military-industrial complex didn't shrink. It thrived. Obama told the nation it was change you could believe in, but in reality, it was the same old machinery with a fresh coat of eco-friendly paint.
I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness. The words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express.
And we're going to have some fun.
You both.
Say it.
It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this,
That's
too.
right. So obviously, she's not a professional actress.
Ironically, many still view him as a saint, yet for countless working-class Americans, the reality felt very different. While families struggled to recover from the financial crash, Obama quietly safeguarded Wall Street. Patrick Bet-David calls that unacceptable. In his view, the famous "Yes, we can" slogan was repurposed into "Yes, Goldman can" as the very institutions behind the 2008 collapse were shielded. Jobs vanished, homes were lost, savings evaporated, yet Obama's donor list ballooned. For everyday Americans, hope never trickled down. Instead, it was Wall Street executives who enjoyed the windfall, raking in massive bonuses, while ordinary families were left behind.
After President Trump had already gotten elected. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue that is so serious it should concern every single American because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. What we saw occur here, as the documents we released detailed, was that we had a sitting president of the United States and his cabinet and leadership team, quite frankly, who were not happy with the fact that President Trump had won the election, that the American people had chosen Donald J. Trump to be the next president commander-in-chief of the United States.
Tulsi Gabbard dismantles the notion that the Nobel Peace Prize somehow proved Obama was a champion of peace. She reminds audiences that he received the award before he had even settled into the Oval Office, almost like a participation trophy. And what followed, under his watch, the Middle East grew more unstable, conflicts escalated, and drone campaigns expanded, often leaving innocent civilians as collateral damage. Tulsi highlights how Obama reshaped war into something that felt detached and sterile. With fewer boots on the ground and more remote operations, warfare started to resemble a PowerPoint presentation rather than a human cost. Patrick Bet-David drives the point further, saying, Obama perfected the art of selling the brand even when the product was lacking. He compares him to a glossy Netflix trailer, full of inspiring music and cinematic flair, only for the series itself to disappoint with hollow promises and filler. Once the polish is stripped away, Obama's legacy looks less like Camelot and more like carefully marketed mediocrity.
That we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact. The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming president of the United States, Donald Trump.
Tulsi points out that Obama's legacy didn't just leave a mark on foreign policy or Wall Street, it reshaped America's political climate in a way that deepened divisions. While he preached unity, his strategy often relied on quiet division. Under his influence, identity politics became embedded in Washington, turning citizens into demographic categories rather than neighbors. With a smile, he convinced one side of the country that they were outdated and the other that they were enlightened, widening, not bridging, the gap. Ironically, it was this very atmosphere that helped set the stage for Donald Trump. The backlash to Obama's moral grandstanding and polished image fueled the momentum that carried Trump into office. And that's the point. With Obama, the picture mattered most. The viral clips of him singing Al Green, the highlight reels of him shooting hoops, the carefully crafted speeches, these became the center of attention. Governance, meanwhile, often took a back seat. Patrick Bet-David argues that Obama functioned less like a commander-in-chief and more like a social media influencer, curating moments for maximum impact instead of delivering real change.
That was an inconvenient truth. The President's Daily Brief article was pulled. It has never been published until we released it about a week and a half ago. Instead, this new intelligence assessment was ordered by President Obama that contradicted directly every other intelligence assessment that had been published prior to the election, as well as assessments that had been pushed forward after the election.
Tulsi underscores how style consistently outweighed substance during Obama's presidency. In foreign affairs, the stagecraft often looked impressive, but the outcomes told another story. The intervention in Libya, framed as a mission of humanitarian protection, ended up leaving behind chaos, a fractured state that became a breeding ground for radicals, sparked waves of unrest, and even enabled the return of slavery markets. In Syria, his famous red lines faded into empty gestures, and half-hearted measures left the region spiraling. Behind the mask of eloquence and polished wisdom was a leader who often seemed uncertain, projecting strength in speeches while delivering weakness in action. His words drew applause, but his policies left the world less stable. Patrick Bet-David adds that the same pattern extended into economics. The myth of prosperity under Obama doesn't hold up under closer inspection. While corporations thrived and profits hit new highs, ordinary wages stagnated and the gig economy became the new normal. Working families were promised relief, but what they got instead was potholes left unfixed on Main Street while Wall Street cashed in. Obama's role, Patrick argues, resembled more of a public relations officer for the global elite than a champion of everyday Americans. Money moved upward, crumbs trickled downward, and what he branded as progress felt more like rebranded trickle-up economics.
Policy related, and it was related to the fact that I had the audacity to go against them, to challenge the elite of the Democratic Party, which is Hillary Clinton, it's Barack Obama, and it's the people who surround them in the military-industrial complex, in the media-industrial complex, those who are pushing, and it's not limited to the Democratic Party.
Tulsi calls out the duplicity behind Obama's progressive facade. While he often spoke passionately about fighting climate change, his presidency actually oversaw a surge in fracking and record levels of fossil fuel production. He pledged transparency, yet acted more like a suspicious roommate, shielding information from the public while secretly targeting journalists with surveillance. For all his claims of empowering the people, his policies deepened their dependence on a system tilted in favor of the wealthy. This double standard, profiting from industries he claimed to regulate while preaching moral responsibility, became a defining feature of his administration. Tulsi Gabbard and Patrick Bet-David highlight the irony with almost comedic disbelief. The same man who once inspired crowds with imagery of grassroots resistance is now more likely to be seen signing Hollywood production deals or sipping wine with Silicon Valley billionaires. The transformation is striking, from the voice of the people to a polished brand manager for the elite.
Let's go to the next topic here, which is Adam's top topic, talking about Obama saying every man needs a gay friend. So Obama goes on his wife's podcast, okay? And they're sitting there having this conversation, and it opens, they covered a lot of different things. Right off the bat, they talked about the divorce. Hey, aren't we supposed to be getting a divorce and all this stuff?
Obama is remembered more for his performance than for his policies, and Patrick Bet-David cut straight through that illusion. While showmanship can be endlessly polished, repackaged, and rehearsed, the results speak for themselves: a more unstable world, a divided nation, and a political culture obsessed with branding over tangible outcomes. And strip away the speeches, and what remains is a politician who mastered charm but failed the test of substance. Patrick Bet-David dissects the brand, while Tulsi Gabbard exposes the hypocrisy beneath the rhetoric. The truth, though liberating, is uncomfortable and perhaps even unsightly. Most strikingly, Obama disappointed his own supporters in ways that are difficult to ignore. He taught a generation that politics is theater, appearances matter more than accountability, and speeches can overshadow real-world results. Together, Tulsi Gabbard and Patrick Bet-David peel back the veneer, exposing the gaps between image and impact until the carefully curated narrative of Obama's legacy is reduced to rubble.
President Obama will go down as perhaps the worst president in the history of the United States! Exclamation point at real Donald Trump. Well, at real Donald Trump, at least I will go down as a president.
Obama has to eat his words for the rest of his life. It's gotta suck. The number one loser of 2024 election.
Obama's most touted domestic achievement was the Affordable Care Act. Yet even this landmark law comes under sharp scrutiny from Patrick Bet-David and Tulsi Gabbard. Marketed as a bold reform, the reality quickly revealed itself as a labyrinth of bureaucratic language that left millions still uninsured, drove costs upward, and burdened small businesses with regulations that were barely manageable. Instead of genuinely helping everyday Americans, the legislation appeared designed to appease the billionaires of the insurance industry. Obama's solution often felt like a government-backed advertisement for private insurers, despite claims of fundamentally transforming the healthcare system. Patrick argues that the so-called historic accomplishment prioritized optics over meaningful progress. In the end, the self-proclaimed champion of the people left ordinary Americans with fewer options and higher deductibles. An ironic twist that undermines the legacy he proudly celebrated.
Tell me if this seems like they woke up together in the same bed this morning, the last week, the last month, the last 90 days, or if they live in two different places. Just watch this real quick. Go ahead, Rob.
Wait, you guys like each other?
Oh yeah, really? Huh?
That's
the rumor mill.
Yeah, slap that hand hard.
It's my husband, y'all.
She took me back.
Next up is the Iran nuclear agreement, another high-profile initiative that, despite widespread praise from Obama supporters, showed significant flaws. Patrick Bet-David calls it political theater designed to bolster Obama's international image. He wanted to be remembered as the great peacemaker, ending conflict with nothing more than a smile and a signature. In reality, the agreement was fragile, short-lived, and widely criticized for inadvertently supporting the very regime it aimed to restrain. Billions were unfrozen, regional allies felt betrayed, and Tehran's influence grew. Tulsi Gabbard points out that this victory lap was superficial, highlighting that true leadership requires sustainable solutions rather than photo-ready moments that impress European media. Tulsi also underscores Obama's domestic maneuvering, noting his involvement in Joe Biden's campaign to secure the nomination. For someone who claimed to rise above the machinery of politics, Obama's hands-on approach revealed the contrary. He pulled strings behind the scenes, ensured loyalty, and controlled outcomes with a precision that belied his professed detachment from the political swamp. This is the same man who once publicly criticized Wall Street, yet, as Patrick Bet-David highlights, He now earns massive speaking fees from the very bankers he once pretended to oppose. Post-presidency, Obama has turned reflection into revenue, converting marshes into private golf courses, while his former critics and supporters alike watch the spectacle. From countless appearances at high-end events to lucrative contracts with Netflix and best-selling memoirs, he has crafted a brand that monetizes his reputation while leaving his supporters grappling with the emptiness of promises unfulfilled and the hope they once invested in him. Tulsi Gabbard also questions Obama's standing as a global leader. The world rarely saw a steady hand. Caution frequently disguised indecision, and charisma often substituted for strategic substance. The Iran nuclear deal, Libya, Syria, each revealed the limitations of a leader more concerned with optics than outcomes. Drone campaigns, corporate bailouts, and fracking expansions all exposed a presidency where spectacle too often outweighed meaningful change. Even the Affordable Care Act, lauded as his signature domestic achievement, struggled under bureaucratic complexity, high costs, and insufficient coverage, benefiting insurance giants more than everyday Americans. Patrick observes that Obama's influence today is more widely recognized than his actual accomplishments in office. Speeches and appearances may dazzle in the moment, but history rewards results, not performance. The reality behind the rhetoric, divided politics, stagnant wages, and unsteady foreign policy remains. As the glow of charisma fades, the veneer of inspiration is stripped away, revealing a legacy that often prioritizes image over impact. Ultimately, what emerges is a portrait of a man who mastered the art of political performance, yet whose tangible achievements frequently fell short. Tulsi and Patrick together argue that while Obama's brand thrives, the substance of his presidency and the promises made must be measured against the outcomes that followed.